All right, folks, Mark here again, cooking books, bringing info. So I've been really doing a lot of research. I mean, just a lot. So far, it's 3 o'clock on a Saturday. I've been sitting here since about 10:30 a.m. And I've just been researching. Got my coffee, my Dunkin' Donuts. I said I drink coffee and just research. So my eyes a little tired right now. But man, this stuff is fascinating, man. Uh, Junk DNA. What I want to talk. I want to talk about junk DNA. Scientists discovered DNA. Junk DNA is DNA discovered by scientists that has not been expressed. Right. This DNA has not been coded. Therefore, it's not accounted for. In other words, there of the DNA that scientists have discovered and meticulously researched, they found that this DNA does not code any proteins. So, in other words, it's inactive. It's inactive. So they labeled it junk DNA. But this is, again, me asking questions, right? I believe in God. And I believe in creation. I'm a creationist because I believe in creationism. I believe there's a designer, right? You can't, like, people who don't believe in God and they believe in evolution and the Big Bang Theory and all of this. Here's a question, right? How do you get such precise order out of chaos? That's the only question. Like, that question would stump every single atheist, non-believer. No matter how clever they are and intelligent they would never be able to give me a satisfactory answer, because the truth of the matter is it defies physics. If you're a student of physics and you study if you study physics, you understand that order cannot come out of disorder without a guiding or a manipulating hand. And you look at, like I said, physics, thermodynamics tells you, second law, the universe ebbs towards entropy. And entropy is disaster, annihilation, and disorder, naturally. So if that's true and you subscribe to that school of thought or that Scientology, then you would agree, by virtue of that science, that order cannot magically appear out of disorder. There must be a organized or a designer, an organizer or a designer, in order to bring about such precision, right? Because again, looking at the DNA, everything is with precision. There's a preciseness embedded within DNA coding and structuring. So that right there, again, I would stump every single atheist. And no matter how clever they would be at constructing some kind of answer or rebuttal, it would be unsatisfactory, because you would have to, whatever your rebuttal would be, then I would challenge and question your rebuttal. You would have to satisfactory make me understand the second law of thermodynamics, explain that law in a contrarian way, right? You're not explaining it to me in agreement, but in a contrarian way. You'd have to tell me the opposite to that law and make it make sense to me. And there's nothing in science or the physics or Newtonian laws or anything that would be able to counter that second law of thermodynamics. So that's why I know that's why I believe there is a God. There has to be, right? And there is a God. And it's not a God, it's the God, because a is an indefinite article, the is a definite article. So there is the God, the one true God. So I believe in that. But anywho, this junk DNA, it can't be junk, because because I believe in God, why would God make DNA, put it in your body, and just consider it to be junk? That doesn't, again, it doesn't jive with precision and the preciseness by which we are constructed in terms of the sequencing and the process of genetic material, of the genome. Right, the genome. There's a preciseness within our genome. Everything is accounted for with precision. So it just wouldn't jive with that. It wouldn't, I can't square that circle. My mind just can't square that circle that there's junk DNA. Here's what I do think, and again, this is purely speculative, based on my research and just my thoughts that come to me. Here's what I think. I think what we call junk DNA is DNA that has not been activated as a result of us not operating or functioning and being true to ourselves, right? And that's not by fault of any one of us per se. It is a cloak, a universal cloak that we've all been veiled by. And because we've all been veiled and cloaked by this cosmic virus, if you will, we're not aware and conscious of our whole, ourselves, and we're not in tune with ourselves enough to activate these genes. The reason why I said it is this: think of a giraffe, right? The genes that were activated in the giraffe was and is a direct correlation and a direct result and affiliation of their environment. That's known. That's like given. Everyone knows that basically. The giraffe's neck adapted as adaptation as a result of the environment. If they were in an environment where their food was low-hanging fruits, they wouldn't have to adapt. Their neck would not grow. And the reason the neck grew is because of what's called epigenetics. Epigenetics is a study of your genes and how genes are expressed based off the environment. What genes are activated and deactivated as a result of the environment. So that now leads me to my next posture, or my next, the next, whatever. I can't even think. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. But that leads me to my next, shit, I'm exhausted. I can't even finish my sentence. Yeah, epigenetics and how a giraffe necks adapt to the environment. Oh, okay, good. That leads me to my next proposition, like my next proposal, the next idea I want to put forth. That is there something in our environment that has stifled, stumped, impede, and abridged these so-called junk DNA, right? That's my next. That's the next proposition, right? The next idea that I want to put forth for speculation, right? If the environment is what switched on certain genes within a giraffe for their neck to extend so that they can get their food, right? And this is evolution. Then if that is true, the alternative is true, that there's things in the environment that turn off genes. Because remember, our genes, if you want to know how our genes work, look at our binary system in our computers. It's ones and O's. Ones and O's. One means on, zero means off. Ones and zeros. I'm sorry, not O's. Ones and zeros. Ones and zeros, ones and zeros. One is on, zero is off. That's how our genes work in a similar way. One would mean that gene is off. Zero would mean that gene is... No, one would mean that gene is on, excuse me. Zero would mean that gene is off. So is there things in our environment that has shut off, deactivated some of our genes, which is now what we call junk DNA? I think so. I think what scientists have called junk DNA are higher elements of our DNA, divine elements of our DNA, supernatural elements of our DNA, which would allow us to activate certain spiritual or supernatural or divine powers that is dormant, inactive, and latent, lying dormant, inactive, and latent within us. And I think this is true. I think the environment that we're in is constantly in perpetuity. There's a perpetual emission of signals, or what do you want to call it? There's a perpetual and constant emission that is subliminally inserting itself into our machine, which is the mind, that I believe turn off or deactivate what we call junk DNA. I don't believe the creator, who has created something so intricate, complex, and mystically mysterious, would ever create junk DNA. Every DNA, every part of our being is accounted for. If you study biology, the anatomy of genes, of cells, if you study nerve fibers, if you study, selective pruning and all of these things, everything is accounted for. Everything within us is accounted for. Every iota, every infinitesimal atom is accounted for. Everything. So why would there be junk DNA that scientists call junk? Because they don't code for a protein. I think It's just that they've been turned off. Just like the giraffe DNA was turned on for their elongation of their necks. I think these genes were turned off. Intentionally too. I think it was intentionally turned off for a selective group so that the true powers are not exhibited. Peace.